Your story matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimish Shardi, and I'm your host. I always love starting every episode by saying thank you. I feel so blessed with this podcast, the impact it has, the people it reaches. When I started this podcast, my intention was really to simplify spirituality and guide people on their journey. I really didn't know the impact it was going to have, the people it's going to reach, and this many years on, 5.5, whatever it was, I started in October 2020. It reaches so many people. I get so many messages, and I feel so blessed that I get to use my voice to guide people. So if you're a regular listener, thank you. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. I love what I get to do, and part of what I get to do is I guide people on their spiritual journey, helping them to understand why they're here, how to shine their light, helping you to release the layers that you're holding on to, and truly become your authentic self. I love what I get to do, and I do that through a beautiful mentorship program that I take you over a 12-week period to really help you to understand your four bodies: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Understand the trauma you're holding on to, the karma you're here to release. I channel the program through the Akashic Records, and yes, there's a framework, but every session is channeled. Like I said, I love what I get to do, and so many other ways through this podcast, through public speaking, I have a membership group. Me and Stacey have a monthly free webinar, full moon webinar. There's so many different ways that you can connect with me. Like I said, I love what I get to do. So today's episode is a little different. I am actually recording this on at 2 a.m., 2:33 actually, a.m. on Monday morning. I just experienced my birthday. So it was my solar return on April the 5th. And I've been debating this for a while, and I share authentically on the podcast, whether it's with my co-host Stacey once a week or with a guest, but I've never really fully shared my journey. And I kind of, I guess there's a part of me that know that I share, and I've shared a lot on this podcast, but maybe there's a part of me that felt my story wasn't as important, not sure. And I asked a few friends, asked a few clients, and the message was a resounding, I should share more and I should share my story. And so I'm going to share you more about my story today and more about my journey. And my intention is to help you to understand your story is important. Because it isn't about your story. It's about how you respond to your story. It's the journey that you take. What happens to you doesn't define you. It's how you respond to what happens to you. So that's the journey I'm going to take you on. So I'm excited to share. I'd love any feedback. Like I said, this episode is maybe more vulnerable than normal. I'm comfortable sharing my story. I guess this podcast has helped me and trained me to be open to share my story. But there's always a resistance, right? And like I said, I'm recording this on Monday morning. I'll release it in a few hours. And maybe I've been procrastinating a little bit over recording it, but I also wanted to record it on around my birthday. I just thought it was a beautiful time to share. We can share our story whenever. I do feel like the energy and the vibration we're in right now is calling us to share more of our story. I feel like we've been pushed to shine our light, to stand out, to be different. And anyone that listens to the podcast regularly knows that I'll always say this isn't scripted. Nothing is scripted. Everything is channeled. In full transparency, I did write a few bullets because not because I want to script anything, but just it helps me with the flow. But yeah, normally I don't even do that because I really want everything to be natural, channeled. And like I said, I hope this inspires you. My wish is really this inspires you to understand your story better and how you responded and how you rose and how you are this person who you are today. And it maybe inspires you even further to share more of your story. So to give you a bit of background on me, I was born in Uganda, in Kaliro, and I was born in 1969, show you my age. And yeah, I had a big family. I have a big family, four brothers, four sisters. Everyone else is older than me, apart from one younger sister. And so I started life in Uganda, born in Kaliro. And we spent 18 months there. We struggled, I know, because I talked to, I was very young, obviously, but I talked to my older sister who's still with us, and she shares. But I also learned, actually, I didn't know maybe I learned 5, 6 years ago, that we moved 18 months, when I was 18 months old, we moved to an area called Buckwatch. And it's really weird because I always looked at Kaliro on Google Maps and thought, well, there's not much there. And then when I hear people talking about Buckwatch, which I thought was I assumed it was near Kaliro, they talk about waterfalls and, good scenery. And I was like, well, I can't really see that. And then obviously when I learned I moved to Buckwatch, that gave a different perspective. And again, I guess there's messages there that, understand where you came from. It helps you. Maybe there's some missing fact. Talk to any elders in your family. Maybe there's stuff that it will help you to understand who you are today. But as life would have it, things shifted quickly. And aged only 3 years old, Idi Amin, who was the dictator and leader in Uganda at the time, decided that all Indian Asians were taking all the money, taking all the jobs, and decided to ask us all to leave. And we were given a matter of weeks. And so we had to leave a very successful business at the time, pack what we could, and the UK government agreed for us to be refugees. And I was 3 years old. I don't remember any of this journey. There's no human recollection I've ever been through. I've done some spiritual activity to kind of go through that journey, but we took that journey, and we were basically stopped every 30 minutes and searched at gunpoint. I'm told two of my brothers had, at different times, had a gun held to the head. They have no recollection of it. Obviously, the elders do. And like I said, I don't remember anything, but I know with some of the work that I've done that we all carried some of that trauma because we're all empathic, right? And I guess certainly with what I do, part of my journey was to take on some of that emotion and maybe release it over the time, over my lifetime, and whatever that means. So, this is why exploring your inner child and what you've been through, and, did I carry much of that trauma? I think I actually did. And some of the inner child work, I feel like has helped me to release it. So understand, do the inner child work, call on a younger version of you and just talk to them. Find out how they're feeling, give them a hug. And the other message clear is, look, things change very quickly. I do sometimes wonder what would our lives be like if we stayed in Uganda. But at the same time, I knew that was my destiny. I know that was exactly what I was meant to experience. And so we were taken on by the UK. We traveled to the UK, and the early part of our journey there for the first 6-8 weeks was we were in an army camp, and I guess we were living there for a while, kind of getting acclimatized, whatever that means. And my older sister often talks about, for the first time we got to taste things like baked beans on toast. If you live in the UK, baked beans is a thing, and it was just a basic food in the UK, but we've never experienced anything like it. So that was a kind of a novelty. And we were eventually placed in an area called Middlesbrough, and it's in the north of the UK, and we were the only two Indian families that were housed there, and we experienced everything. Again, I was too young to remember a lot of it, but we experienced a lot of joy, a lot of unknown. People weren't sure about us, but also some racism, as you do. Interesting enough, my first memory of anything comes from living in Middlesbrough. My memory is holding one of my brother's hands. I'm not sure which one, but there was a few of us running across this big field. And that was my first memory. Is like, well, we were running, and I felt the freedom of the field. And subsequently, when I look back, when I visited, and I look on Google Maps, but I actually visited, that big field was a little roundabout. And but I guess in a child's mind, there was more to it, right? That was my first memory, and it's interesting, right? But I guess to describe that experience in a deeper way, my younger sister wasn't well. She was still very young. She got a lot of attention. Everyone else is older, and you picture it, right? We were all landed we came into a different land, didn't know the language, didn't know the space, and honestly, everybody was just trying to survive. Everybody's trying to figure out where their place was. The older siblings were looking for work. Younger siblings were going to school, and we were all trying to learn the language. And ultimately, I didn't have a voice. I was told I was very quiet, and I really didn't fit in. And obviously, money was tight, and everybody else was trying to do the best they can, and ultimately, I'll talk more about it over this recording, but I didn't have a voice. And isn't it ironic that my voice in today's world is one of my biggest things? People love my voice. They feel my intention. They feel the authenticity that comes through my words. So it is interesting what your soul decided to do in this lifetime. And I feel like part of my journey was to find my voice. So again, what did you experience as a child that maybe is driving who you are today? Or maybe it's part of your journey to kind of really take whatever you went through, because I really believe that when the soul comes into human form, you have karma to release, right? Personal ancestral karma. This is the thing that you carry into this lifetime that your soul has decided to release. Personal karma is the things that you've been through in past lives that you bring into this life. Ancestral is what your ancestors went through, and maybe they have something to release that you chose to release. And I do feel like a lot of adults in this lifetime have chosen to release a lot of karma, personal and ancestral, which is why so many people are going through intensive lives, because you're releasing so much karma. The second thing is your soul wants to expand. And whatever you're here to experience, your soul chooses to expand in that way. And so that those two things really bring on a lot of intensity in this life. But what if 1 and 2 is also your training for what you're meant to do in this phase of whatever the planet's going through? What if whatever you've been through and the karma you've released, and whatever you've been through in your soul expanding, has been training you for you using your voice, using your story, using whatever you learn in this phase? I spent, again, I'll talk about it, but I spent 30 years in the corporate world, and I have no regrets for that. But that was part of my journey. So, I think it was 2 years living in the Middlesbrough area. Eventually, we moved to an area called Leicester, and those that are not in the UK, Leicester's there's parts of Leicester that's pretty much known as Little India, because there is a in certain areas there's a high percentage of Asian Indians there, and especially there was quite a lot that moved from Uganda. So we were guided there. My uncle, who's had such a big impact on our world, he's the one, for example, in Uganda, took us from Kaliro, where we were struggling, and had a business that was struggling, and took us to Pakwach, where we thrived. He's the same uncle that helped us move from Middlesbrough to Leicester, and again, I feel like we have a soul contract with him. He's one of our angels to really kind of guide us, help us. He was my mum's brother, and I'll be forever in debt. And just what would my life be like if I was still in Uganda? What would my life be like if we stayed in Middlesbrough? I don't know. But again, I feel like I was guided and I was guided to exactly where I'm meant to be. But again, I remind you, this is not about your story. So yes, we moved to Leicester and still struggling to survive, figure it out. In a school that I joined when friendships were already made and all that sort of stuff. I was still really quiet, still struggling with the language and trying to figure it out, but I was better. But I was overweight. I was bullied because I didn't fit in. My whole life, and certainly the early part, I was trying to fit in. And again, maybe I'm not meant to fit in. But you go through that. I had to go through the being quiet, being bullied to really understand I'm not meant to fit in. And I feel like so many people around right now are not meant to fit in. If we're going to create something that's never been created before, then we're not meant to fit in. If you listen to this podcast, I feel like you're not meant to fit in. So maybe stop trying to fit in. And, the lesson from my childhood in Leicester is pretty much, sometimes you shrink to protect yourself. And again, in today's world, let me ask you, are you shrinking to protect yourself? The journey continues. I went to secondary school in Leicester, and it kind of carried on. We changed locations where we lived in Leicester. Again, that has a big impact. We moved to a bigger house. Again, like I said, there was 9 siblings and mum and dad. So again, we were trying to figure out just survive. And again, I continued to be bullied, and I made a decision to go to secondary school away from where I lived. So what that meant was an hour bus journey every day each way. Just because I wanted to change location, I felt like that would help. But again, there's moments. There's a moment I remember being on the bus, looking out outside, and the weather was quite miserable. And I remember thinking, I don't belong here. If I left this realm, this world at this time, would I really be missed? And I remember that dark moment. I remember like it was yesterday, and it was just a thought. But as the journey continued, we changed location again, actually nearer to the school I was in, so I could walk to school, and I started getting some friends. And for me, things really started to shift when I went to college, when I went to university, and I started making more friends, and really I started to thrive. But did I still fit in? No, but I think I started to, having some friends, and I had a growth spurt, so some of the weight I was carrying wasn't as, kind of just became more part of who I am. But because of the growth spurt, it had less impact, etc. But that again, that move helped. I college, university was probably one of my best times. I just had so much fun, and even ironically, right? We were having a lot of fun. There was I had so many different groups of friends, but there was a core group, and we were having so much fun that in the first year of university, only 2 of us got through. I tend to be pretty good at exams and things like that, and I studied late, and I got through that first year. But just because of the fun we're having, some of the others didn't, and had to repeat that first year. But again, I only just share that with you because this is the story, right? Did it make much of a difference to? I guess it helped me to understand that I have some skills, and it helped me to also understand that I've got to make the best of this journey, right? So I finished my studies, and even even during the break-in of studies, I thought, I don't know, I studied computing, so I thought, you know what, maybe that's going to be my path. So I took an internship as a software engineer. That was my first proper role. I did lots of things before, but I tried software engineering. Actually, it wasn't for me. I found it so boring, it drained me so much, and I was like, okay, and that was a decision in that moment. But I knew that I was meant to be in corporate. That was I was like, I wanted to live a program life, right? I wanted to earn a good living. I wanted to be successful, get married, have 2.4 kids, and all the rest of it, right? And I was looking for work, and as you finish college, etc., sometimes it takes time. I got offered a sales role in an IT company, in an IT distribution company called Ingram Micro. They were just moved to the UK, and I thought, as you do, let me take this role, let me start earning some money, and I look for what I really want to do. And as it happened, I stayed there for 8 years, and I started in sales. I moved into sales operations. Actually, the role was created for me, and really, I kind of became a such an integral part of that space. And that company went through so many changes. We started with 60 people, grew to 600, 60 million turnover to 600 million turnover, and it kind of really helped me and grew me to really understand change, because we changed so much. And I gave so much to that company. There were so many times that things changed, and I felt like, oh my God, if I leave this company, the company's not going to survive. There was times I was doing 20-hour days, and I gave so much to it, and it just, again, but we went through another management shift, and all of a sudden, after 8 years, I was made redundant. And it was like, wait, what? And it was just such a shock. I got a nice payout and the rest of it, and had to be on gardening leave, so I had a nice company car and out of work for 3 months, and I enjoyed that. But it was just interesting, right? I'd given my world to this place, and but again, it's another sign that don't get too comfortable. Things change. See the signs. If I was honest, I saw this coming, right? But I was oblivious to it, right? I was like, they're never going to do that to me, and again, I was successful. I learned a lot. From there, I moved to a few of the roles. I was sure that what this corporate role was. This is my mission, right? Is what I was meant to do, and I started to find purpose in life and earned a decent salary. Was enjoying my space, and I got into another nice role. Again, nice company car. Was doing really well. And I remember a distinct conversation having with a friend at the time, and I've said a little bit about this before, but never gone too deep. And I remember the conversation. She was pushing me about what my salary was and all that sort of stuff, and I never really shared that stuff because my business. But in the end, at some point, I told her, and I remember something shifted in her eyes, and didn't think much of it. And a few things happened, and I got laid off at this place. I hadn't been there that long, so it wasn't as good a redundancy. Actually, wasn't much redundancy at all. And but again, I thought, you know what, I have some really good experience. I'm sure I'll find something. And I struggled for a couple of years. I struggled financially. If it wasn't, again, I feel like the universe was helping me. My sister was living at the time, and she had a good job, and so she helped me with the mortgage and all that sort of stuff. If she wasn't there, I'm sure I would have lost my home. And I just kept applying. I kept doing it. I was just persistent, but it was getting harder and harder. And again, this is where the universe supports you if you let it at times. So another friend of mine who just wanted to go and ask some questions to a religious lady for her brother, who again, she thought that maybe somebody done something to her brother. She said, "Will you come with me to see this religious lady?" She was just a bit nervous about it. I said, "Sure." I wasn't even there for me. It wasn't far from me. It was around the corner. It was literally walking distance. And I went there, and she looked at me, and she said, "Somebody's done something to you." And just in that moment when she said it, I got an image in my head of what had been done, who'd done it. Kind of freaked me out. So a friend of mine at the time, who I kind of, again, I didn't start with the spiritual journey that deeply, but I had my doubts at times, but she was a friend. But what she'd done was some dark magic on me. And in different religions, including Hinduism, you can do, some people learn the darker side of magic, right? So she did a fire ceremony for me to be unsuccessful. Why she wouldn't do something for her to be more successful, I would never know. But long story short, the lady was there. She's like, "I can't fix it, but I can help you fix it. I can send it to India." I wasn't sure, so I actually went to see another religious lady who we knew in the family. She confirmed it, and she'd give me more details, which I'd already saw. I couldn't ignore it. So I went back to the original lady, and she helped me to send off some stuff to India, and they did a fire ceremony for me. They sent me the ashes of the ceremony, a little casket. Within 2 days of wearing that, I got an interview for a directorial role. Within a few days after that, I got offered the role. And that was all great. It took me back into corporate and, back on the path. But it did a couple of other things. It opened me up spiritually, helped me to understand there's so much more going on out there. Because before I experienced this, my state was anything I put my mind to, I can do. It's just like PMA, positive mental attitude, right? I keep going. But when this happens and I was derailed, it's like, wait, maybe just stop and think, well, hold on. There's so much more going around mentally than there's so much more going around than just the mental space. And it opened me up to the emotional and the spiritual side of the world. Obviously, the original friend that did this to me is not in my world. Why would she be? But I don't hold any negative animosity to her, because why would I? That's what a soul contract looks like. If I hadn't experienced that darkness, then who knows? Maybe I'd still be in a corporate world. So I feel like I was meant to. And this is, again, why I'm sharing my story, because I want you to look at your story and ask, well, hold on, these experiences I have, what did they actually teach me? How did they help me grow? Of course, I don't want to hear my word. Why would I? But I don't. I recognize that I was a soul contract. I had a soul contract with her to do something like whatever this looks like, and it opened me up spiritually. And I don't always share too much about this story, because what I don't want it to do, I don't want people listening thinking, well, hold on, maybe somebody's done something to me. Because your answers are inside you. So if you keep showing up for you and doing the inner work, then you'll find out your answers. If you start to think, I must be somebody's done dark magic, you're giving your power away. I didn't even think anyone did any dark magic. I was just led and guided to heal it, because in some way, I guess, as I was showing up, or it was divine timing. So don't take this story and think, oh, maybe somebody's done something to me. That's not really my message. My message is to understand your journey, but also to the people that have had a bigger impact in your world. What was your soul contract with them? What did you sign up for? Because it's like, if I look at it, a lot of my big lessons have come from pain, have come from grief. And, it helps you, and, letting go. I'm sure I don't remember too much about it, but I'm sure originally when I found out that Fred did what she did, I'm sure there was a period of anger, there was a period of confusion, because I remember that friend, it was somebody I really went on my way to help. And I was like, wait, hold on. And it really made me step back and look at my relationships and, well, hold on. And I guess that started a different shift too. I guess I'm going to move on talking about grief a little bit, and just how that impacts your story and how it's impacted mine. As fate would have it, the day I started the new role that I got offered, and that role actually in many ways, many different guises, the company was bought out and all that sort of stuff, but that was the role I stayed in for 17 years, and I left that role to start this healing business. So it had a profound impact on me. But again, as the universe would have things, on the few days leading up to me starting this new role, my sister-in-law, she'd been diagnosed with cancer, and she was such a beautiful soul. She'd eaten so healthy, such a big heart, and I would always wonder, why did she get cancer? And even in having cancer, she had so much hope, and she was, she was listening to Tony Robbins and all this, and she was like, and she'd got an appointment to see the foremost, expert in her type of cancer. He was in London, and she lived in Leicester, and they were going to come up, and they were going to come and stay with me. And I was like, oh, how cool is that? And then, she came and stayed, but she went to see this expert, and he basically told her that there's nothing he could do. And I saw a spark in her switch off that day. And I still remember it. It was just because you lose hope. And the day before I was going to start, she was not in a good way. She was in hospital. They weren't sure she was going to make it. And I was debating, should I go, or should I just, and in the end, after talking to my sister, she was like, well, you should still go. And look, if anything happens, we'll ring you, right? And I went in, started, and within a couple of hours, I got a phone call to say, I need to get to Leicester. And obviously I told them at work, and even though I just started, they understood. And, I went, and, that day my sister-in-law passed away. And again, grief has such a big impact in it. I did so many memories, so many things, so many, yeah, it just had such an impact. But again, it's day one. It's like, isn't it life interesting, right? And I've experienced grief, and I do sometimes wonder because, for example, my dad passed away 31 years ago now, and he was, stories I hear now, he was very spiritual. He kind of knew things, but when he was here on this planet, I wasn't spiritual. And I remember me and him clashed for different things. And I do wonder now, it's like, well, if he was still in this realm, if he was still in this planet humanly, how much of an impact would he have on me, right? And, how much would he be able to guide me? How different would I be? But again, that's what a soul contract looks like. And ironically, when he was on this planet, he was always really helping everybody. And he was actually, in many ways, helping others more than having time for me and having time for the family. And that's who he was. He was always there helping people. I just assumed, because I knew and I felt he'd evolved. I just felt that being on the side, even when I started all this spiritual work, that he'd evolved and he'd changed and he wasn't around me that much, and I just accepted it. But actually, with the work I've done since, and actually, when Stacey was first here, she channeled a picture of him, which is actually in my lounge, and I realized that his energy is angelic. And the reason I don't feel him around me is really two reasons. One, his energy is different on the other side, and two, it's not like his energy comes in and out. His energy is constantly around me. So, again, my message here is, look, and it's a side message, but your loved one's energy and vibration may be different on the other side. So don't assume the energy is the same. But to give you more, when Dad passed, he was determined he was going to go to India. He just, was just determined that he had to go to India. And my sister was going to India, and my dad wasn't well. And she's like, well, I don't, And he's like, look, I'm going to go either way. You take me, you do, or I'm going to go anyway. So she took him. And we all remember, I remember being in the car with my sister and my brother. It was always kind of like a passing conversation, but we all said there was something we sensed that maybe we're not going to see him again. Because when he left, he was, at the time, and this is over 30 years ago, traveling to India was a big deal. And normally a lot of people would come and see you. It's the kind of the cultural thing to do. But for my dad, he was going to see everybody. He was going to see them. He was giving his stuff away. And it was like, it's kind of like he was closing stuff out. And, I remember when, he was in India, and I got a phone call. At the time I was staying with a friend, and the days before mobile phones, if I'm sure somebody you remember those days, and it was my brother, and he just said, I remember that evening like it was yesterday, and he just said, it's Dad, he's gone. And that was, again, such a profound, because I wasn't there. Nothing I could have done. I remember that night I drove to Leicester, and I don't even know how I drove because it was such an emotional. And but again, the reminder is that connection never ends. He's now one of my guides, and our loved ones don't always turn into guides, but sometimes they do. But our loved ones are part of their soul, whatever you want to call it, their essence does watch over us. So be open to feeling that, whether they're a guide or watching over you and loving you from a distance. Talk to them, feel them. But grief also, to continue to that part of it. My mom passed away too, right? So, and I do wonder, it's like, mom, dad having such a big impact, etc. There's a lot of people that have had a big impact on me. I've left this realm, and I sometimes wonder, well, okay, I lost, dad in my 20s, and mom, I guess it was, about I don't remember exactly, 16, 17 years ago. So again, that was in my late 30s, early 40s, and again, I wonder what impact would they have had. And you know, with mom, I sometimes used to stay in Leicester because I had a contract. I was doing sometimes doing some work in Leicester and all the rest of it. And the morning I was leaving, because I took some PTO, I was going to go I was going to go to Miami, spend a couple of days there, then go on a Caribbean cruise. And I was going with my sister and her husband and a friend. And on the morning, mum wasn't well, and she was having stomach issues. And I was just before I went, I said, "Look, mum, I can change my flight." Um, And she's like, no, no, you should go. Because she used to get those type of issues all the time. And there was something in me that, like, I'm not sure I should go. But she's like, she goes, let you know that I get this all the time. I was like, okay, fine. So I went. We spent a few days in Miami. Everything was fine. She did have to go into hospital, but again, everything felt fine. Then when we were docking the cruise, me and my sister, we were just talking, and we were like, well, hold on, something doesn't feel right. We called home, mum was in hospital, but they're like, oh, everything's fine. They're going to operate. No, nothing still didn't feel right. So we were on the cruise when we rang up again, and it was the middle of the night in the UK, and we knew that somebody was in the hospital, so we just rang there, and three of my family members were there in the middle of the night. We thought, well, this is weird. And they were again trying to just say everything's going to be fine. And mum had always said that she didn't want to be a burden. So if something was going to happen, she lived on her own, but she lived opposite my sister. My brother was around the corner, so she's not like she wasn't totally on her own, but she just had it in her that she wasn't going to be a burden. And they operated on her stomach, and there was a hole that something happened, and she could have survived, but it would have mean that she would have been bedridden for 6 months. And I feel like she made that decision. She made that decision not to be here because she didn't want to be a burden. And by the time that we got this news, we were already on the cruise. We hadn't docked to the first place yet. But obviously, we're going to go to the first location and then leave and catch a flight back. And actually, this cruise happened to be a Bob Proctor cruise. So if you haven't heard of Bob Proctor, he's a public speaker, motivational, but also spiritual. And, there was going to be other speakers there like Marianne Williamson. And it was kind of going to be that kind of motivational / spiritual cruise. And on our way to be docked to the first location, Bob Proctor obviously heard what was happening, and he invited us to have a meeting with him, to meet him in his in his office type thing. And we went there, and there was four of us: me, my sister, my sister's husband, and my best mate. And and Bob looked at me and he's like, "You okay?" And honestly, I was so angry. And I couldn't retain. I was swearing, and I was like, I'm so angry at God. Because I wasn't there when Dad passed away, and I wasn't there when Mum passed away. And I was like, wait, hold on. Don't I get a chance to say goodbye? Is that not in my... And there's one thing he said to me that helped me through those next few weeks. And that is, you're exactly where you're meant to be. And whatever reason, those words resonate with me. They helped me to understand I wasn't meant to be there. And, I'm sure my family were annoyed with that phrase after a while because I said it so often. But again, isn't it interesting how the universe does give you these clues when you're going through some grief, when you're going through some pain? And again, my message here is always look for magic no matter what's happening. And I have done some work, subsequently with Sidra and others, and I talked to Mum, and basically her message was that if me or my younger sister was there, she would have struggled to leave this realm. And actually, her message was that, we weren't meant to be there. So that helps. And it was interesting. I thought she was always worried about me not married and not having any kids, and I thought she'd be angry, and the other half for those same reasons, and actually she wasn't. When I had a conversation with her, her message for me was, look, try, because she always kept the family together, and everything we did was always at her place, and she's like, well, I need you to keep the family together. And I listened to that. I've got 4 brothers, 4 sisters, 10 nephews, 3 nieces, and I'm sure I would have done it anyway, but I've gone out my way to have a really amazing connection with all my nephews and nieces. I wanted to make sure they experienced things that I didn't growing up, concerts, attending sporting events, but also having someone to talk to that isn't a parent. Because parents will do the best they can, but they always have kind of an agenda to keep the kids safe or whatever it may be. Whereas my role was always to ask them questions to help them understand that, whatever decision they're trying to make, help them understand the implications of that decision. And I know they will come at me at different times. I love the relationship and the connection I have with all my nephews and nieces. So her message to me actually resonated. And, the family gets together at least a couple of times a year, and normally set my place at Christmas or on my birthday. I kind of go out of my way for. And so isn't it interesting, right? How this journey, and again, understanding grief and the impact that pain and grief has on you, I feel is such a big part of this journey. In terms of, I mentioned relationships, and the other work I've done is, there was times I was angry at God too. It's like, well, hold on, because I wasn't married, didn't have kids, and I was like, wait, hold on, don't I deserve happiness? Don't I deserve to get married and have kids? And again, with the work I've done, is I understand my soul needed to kind of go through this expansion, go through this karmic release, mostly on my own. I've had some really long relationships, etc., but I've never been married. And I understand that the expansion I've gotten without being without having kids, without being married, actually is part of my journey. Does the human in me still at times wonder what my journey would be like? Yeah, 100%. But again, part of this spiritual journey is, first stage is always awareness, and you become aware by asking deeper questions. What are these soul contracts? What do they mean? What did I learn from my most painful experiences? Those type of questions increase your awareness. Once you understand your journey deeper, the next stage is acceptance. My soul chose this journey for me. And honestly, I have some conversations with my nephews and nieces at times, and so the conversation we have is, if I'd had kids, my relationship with them wouldn't be as deep. And it's an interesting take, right? And honestly, in many ways, when I started this spiritual expansion and spiritual journey, my first thing was I wanted to heal everybody around me. It's like, just help everybody, everybody I love. And I realized that a couple of things. One, not everybody's assigned to me. And 2, not everybody's ready. And today, my siblings, I have a lot of love from them. I feel a lot of love from them. I love them too, but they don't really understand the spiritual journey as much at a deeper level. In many ways, actually, my nephews and nieces, some of them understand it more because they've lived with this. They've seen this part of me. The part of me that they've spent most time with is this spiritual part. So again, it's so interesting. It's our expense. It's like, I talk a lot about our blood family and why we pick our blood family. Sometimes we pick them to love us, sure, but we always pick them to expand us. So our blood family is not always here to love us. I feel blessed with my blood family. There's a lot of love there. But I've accepted that all of them are going to understand this part of me. Actually, ironically, my older sister, who's kind of like a mum now, she attended one of my meditation circles actually this past week for the first time. So she got to experience the meditation. They'll watch my stuff on social media, my clips and stuff, but listen to my podcast. Some of them do, but it's different, right? Everyone's on their own journey, but she got to experience that. It was like a proud moment for me. But again, I have to accept them for who they are. But this is why picking a soul family is important. A soul family is those people that understand you at a different level, that you can hold, that hold your space. They do understand this version of me. And again, they don't replace my blood family. I remember, my sister once, when she, when I started working with Sidra used to talk a lot about a soul family. And I remember my sister asking Sidra at an event, Nims already has a family. Why does he need it? And she explained it to her, and then actually I said it was heavy. We were at an event, and after the lunch time when we had that conversation, she came back. She's like, "Oh, I have a beautiful conversation to have with you guys. I had this beautiful conversation with Nim's sister. I was helping at the time. I was at the back, and and then she went and changed whatever she was going to talk about. She started talking about a soul family, and my sister asked the question with love because she was worried that I was joining some sort of cult. I was being brainwashed, and it was from a loving place. So again, life is really interesting. So I've talked. This is stuff I haven't really talked about too much before. The spiritual part of my journey, I feel like I have talked about, but I'm going to get into that a little bit deeper now. So, when I started on the spiritual journey after experiencing the dark magic, my first thing was, opening me up to spirituality. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to get deeper on this. I was looking for courses. I was looking for meditations. I was looking for mentors, gurus to give me a meditation, to give me a course that would fix me. Eventually, I realized I don't need to be fixed. But I needed to go down that avenue of trying to be fixed, go through these courses, spend some money. And eventually, I realized everything you need is inside you, all the love, all the answers, all the joy. And I always say, if you're looking for a mentor or somebody to guide you, really should find somebody, one, that resonates with you at a soul level. But two, make sure they're not here. They're not trying to fix you. Nobody should really be telling you what to do. They should be guiding you, using whatever gifts they have, the intuition, really helping you to understand you. You know you better than I know you, but I can guide you using my intuition and whatever that looks like. So trust in that intuition if you're looking for somebody. So I met Sidra. Ironically, I met Sidra through I was in a relationship. I was engaged. That was the only time as close as I got to being married. And she's the one that actually met Sidra first. She went on Sidra had this free weekend course. And after day one, she rang me. She's like, "Oh my God, you need to meet Sidra. She's amazing." And she's the one that guided me. And ironically, that relationship, that relationship actually didn't survive. And, so many of my relationships over the years, I feel like I walked away too soon. And ironically, that relationship, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I give it my all. And I know in that relationship, that's probably a different episode, but I gave it my all. And I know that soul contract's complete. Was part of her soul contract with me to introduce me to Sidra? Yeah, probably. Would I have met Sidra anyway? I think so, but who knows? But I met Sidra, and me being me, I was like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. We had a good conversation. I'm like, Sidra, I want to work with you one-to-one. And she was like, well, no, why don't you sign up for this course and do that? And I'm like, no, I was persistent. And we started working with Sidra one-to-one. That was in late 2011, maybe early 2012. And, working with Sidra, I started to understand the healer I am, the power of her. She was never trying to fix me, but she could get under my skin like nobody else. And she helped me to understand who I am. And, we started to do, short story, we started to do a lot more community work together, and we were going to partner in some stuff. And she was like, you know what? If we're going to partner together, I should really meet your family. I'm like, sure, let's do it. And they were running, most of them in Leicester. I live in London, which is it's a 2-hour journey. So we planned it, and I said I'd drive, but her and Ivana, one of the person I work closely with her, they would drive to mine, and then I'd drive to Leicester. And Sidra being Sidra came in. She wasn't actually going to come in the house. And I was like, you might as well come in and feel the energy. She came in. She loved the energy of my place. And she felt the family's energy. There's family's pictures here and there. And she's like, oh, wow, yeah, I can feel all their energy. This place is beautiful. And she called it Merlin. And in the end, she ended up calling it Merlin House of Ascension. It really is a healing space. And she's like, you know what? I met all your family. I feel their energy. We don't need to drive to Leicester. And I was like, wait, hold on. The whole family had arranged to be in one sister's house. We made some food or whatever. And it's like, I'm like, we're going to Leicester. I was like, all right. So we drove to Leicester. We were driving down. We were talking about all the work we were doing, whatever, and lots of other conversations. We kind of got into Leicester. I'm like, Sidra, what are you going to talk to my family about? She's like, you know what? I'm going to talk to you about the community projects we were doing. We called it the Wee World, creating the Wee World at the time. I'm going to tell them about all the amazing. I was like, okay, cool. We get in there and all the family together. And Sidra being Sidra, she spends like 90 minutes talking about how much she loves graveyards, how much she loves talking to the dead, and how she prefers talking to the dead than the humans. And Sidra was having, she had soul contracts. She was a deep spiritual being, and I get it. But my family, they would look at me and think, well, who is this lady, right? I mean, they trust me. They kind of know that I'm going to do whatever I feel right. But and then Sidra was like, let's go. I'm like, what do you mean? Where are we going? She's like, we've got to go. We're gonna get back and meet other people. I was like, wait, so you haven't even talked about the Wee World. You haven't talked about. She's like, oh yeah. She spends like maybe 2 minutes talking about it, and then we leave. So I was leaving with them because I drove them, so I couldn't even stay back and explain. And just, I'm sure that blew their minds a little bit. But again, it's just that's who she was, and I was entering into a world that maybe they're not going to understand. And I feel like that's what she was trying to do. Could she have done it differently? Yes, probably. But I started obviously working much deeper with Sidra. She had soul spas in all around the world, in Hawaii, Mexico, Sedona, India, UK, Spain, and some of these I was there attending, and some of these I was there supporting and helping. And I really thought we were going to raise the consciousness of the planet together. And the conversation I said I talked to Mum. That was actually in Hawaii, in kind of one of the breaks when we were just talking at night. And actually, it happened to be near the anniversary of Mum leaving this realm. And so, we did so much work together. And I really thought that I was doing all the work, and I was going to show up, and and as fate would have it, Sidra used to spend a few months a year in India, and she was in India with Ivana, and they passed away in a fire in March 2020. Actually on the 20th, Sidra left this realm in a fire. Aged only 30 years old, and she'd been talking a lot to me about kind of not being in this realm, not being here, and I just kind of used to laugh it off. But I now know that she was preparing me for her not to be here. She used to talk about me being a trump card. I never really understood it. But actually, when she left this realm, there was something inside me that switched. I knew I was playing safe, and obviously I missed her humanly. But there was something inside me knew that I had to carry on with her mission, but also combining it with mine. And she's the one that pushed me as a guide. So when she left this realm, I knew she could help so many more people. And she became a spiritual guide. And I could feel her energy around me all the time. And she's the one that pushed me to learn how to read Akashic records. If you're a regular listener to this podcast, I talk about the records quite a lot. And she pushed me as a guide to learn how to read Akashic records. She hadn't talked about Akashic records much while she was here. She did the odd meditation here or there, but it wasn't much. But as a guide, she was persistent. I kept seeing things about Akashic records. I kept hearing a voice about Akashic records. So I learned how to read the Akashic records because I really wanted to understand my connection with her. I knew we weren't done. I knew we still had a soul contract. And it was such a beautiful process. I understood that she's here to... I understood that I'm here to do the work in this realm, and her role is to support me in the other realms. We would continue to working together and whatever that looks like. And it was such a beautiful process that I started reading for friends, but it also gave me a deeper understanding of why I'm here. And I then made Akashic Records as part of my process. I was still in the corporate space. But, then I started making a paid service. And really the records have changed my life. They've helped me build a deeper connection to my guides. They've helped me to explore the different realms. For me, the records, and Akashic Records are a record of everything your soul's been through: current life, past life, future life, parallel life, everything about the record, everything about you stored in the records, and gave me so much information. But for me, the records aren't about honor, but really about getting information and getting your answers. Yes, to help you with that, but actually, they open the doorway to build a deeper connection to your soul family on the other side in the other realms. You can build a deeper connection with them, understand them more. And that's the journey. It's like building that relationship. And I love the records. I read for thousands. I train people on the records. They really did change my life. And actually, this podcast, I got the message through Sidra and the records that my voice is my gift. I need to use it. So then I decided to start a podcast. I called it Spiritual Journey. It has Sidra's initials, Sidra Jeffrey Spiritual Journey. And I'm sure some of you heard me mention that before, but I really feel like she guides it. She talked a lot about awakening. Her book is actually called Awakening. So I called it Spiritual Journey Path to Awakening. So yes, I named it in her honor. And I really still feel like she guides it. Like I said at the beginning, I was debating it. Am I going to start it? And actually a friend just pushed me. She's like, why don't you just start it? And Sabi, if you're listening, thank you. And, I was like, I need the right software. I need the right mic. And in the end, I just sat in front of my MacBook, and just, no mic, just put AirPods in and just started talking. And on the journey, of course, now I've got a mic and better camera and all that sort of stuff. But it's not, again, my story here is if you, I feel like we're all things that coming up in all of us. So if you feel a calling, then don't talk your way out of it. Trust that intuition. Start. If you want to record a podcast, then start. This podcast has been such a blessing to me. It's trained me so much in just channeling information and being able to just speak without worrying about it. It feels so natural, and I feel so blessed with it. And like I said, it reaches so many people. I get messages on a weekly basis saying, I found your podcast when I needed it most. And so many things that are, it's like I feel like you're talking to me directly, and I love those messages. So if you have any feedback on this podcast, anything you want to share, please do let me know. Send me a DM, send me an email. I love receiving those messages, so thank you. And even if it's constructive, if it's something you want me to do differently, recently I got feedback that that my voice isn't always loud as it needs to be. Okay, that's something I'll try and do differently. So it isn't just, if you have some feedback, please do reach out. And even if it's just to say you found it, and obviously please do like, comment, and share. So yeah, I carried on the spiritual path, and the mentorship program I mentioned at the beginning, I channeled it through the records. I was still in the corporate space, and I guess early on when Sidra left, I wasn't really thinking about leaving the corporate space. But over time, I got more and more detached. And, I talked about joining corporate and rejoining corporate. The company I joined was an open source company. It's called Red Hat, before it was taken over by IBM. And it was so many beautiful people. I felt blessed to be there, and all the things I learned, I'm forever grateful for. I've created teams, I've managed teams, I've been mentoring people through most of my corporate career, which ended up being 30 years. So some of that is I'm using in today's world. Why I spent so long in corporate and what that means to my journey, I don't know. Maybe I've got to create some stuff to heal corporate from within. I'm open to that. I know I was doing it for a reason, but ultimately I got to a point where it was draining me. I was spending time in meetings, and it would just drain my energy. And I was waiting for a package. We were taken over by IBM. I thought, you know what, they're going to make some more redundancies. They'd made one round. I didn't make that round because I was in a small team. We were all needed. And then I came to a point, we were starting a new planning cycle, and, attending all day meetings and planning. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. So I remember just making a decision to leave. And I remember talking to my manager, who's a beautiful soul. And she'd only been my manager for maybe 18 months. And I didn't think she knew me that well spiritually, but when I said to her I'm leaving, she's like, I'm so proud of you. She's like, ever since I met you, I knew you were here for something so much more. And I was like, wow, okay. If I needed confirmation from the universe, that was it. And again, I really felt like Sidra guided me through that. And that was, I mean, it feels like it's been lifetimes, but it's only been just over maybe 2 years and 2 months, right? It's not been that long, but I feel like I've been dedicated myself to this healing business for so much longer. Yes, I was doing stuff in parallel, but I haven't looked back. I love what I get to do. So again, my message here is to follow your passion. You know, I get to guide people on a daily basis. I get to mentor them. I get to do this podcast, 2 episodes a week. And honestly, I don't script anything. I don't edit anything. That's how I can release 2 episodes a week. If it required lots of editing, lots of scripting, I won't be able to do everything. But it's just something I love giving. I love sharing my voice, and I feel so privileged and blessed to be able to do it. So follow your passion. I don't know what the future holds for me. And this is the thing. I feel like so many of us are at a point, we don't know what the future holds. We don't. But if we do, it's like we all have this feeling, a lot of us anyway, that we're in this place where actually the world we're in right now, we don't fit in anymore. But maybe the new world or what are we moving into isn't ready. And we're in kind of this space in the middle, right? And I recorded a couple of episodes on this topic, but what if we meant to just trust, take a leap of faith? And that doesn't mean do nothing, by the way. It means keep showing up for you, keep doing the self-care, keep time in meditation, time in nature. And also maybe you've got to use your voice, share your story. You know, you look at my story, I didn't have a voice growing up. Everyone says to me I was really quiet. And now my voice is my gift. I still get, you know, sometimes, oh, you're a lot quieter than you used to be. And I'm not really, but I'm only going to talk if I have something to say. I'm not really into chit chat, etc. And, you know, hence not even maybe sharing this full story earlier. But, you know, again, as we get to the end of this episode, and I'm so excited for whatever the future holds for me. Whatever I speak about in this podcast, I always say I know nothing, because whatever comes through comes from a different place. If I try and hold on to things, oh my God, this is mine, and somebody's, then where's that going to get me? None of it's mine. It comes from a different place. And, you know, honestly, if we try and do things from a human, a mind perspective, that's your history in this lifetime. It's what you've experienced in this lifetime. But when you start trusting your heart, your intuition, you have access to so much more information. And that's where the power comes from. When I say I know nothing, what I'm actually saying is I'm not using my mind. I'm not using what I'm actually trying to doing is channeling from a different place. And there's so much more information available in the records, available from your guides around you. That's what I'm tapping into. And, you know, I didn't have a voice. So what did you go through as a child, and what are you using in today's world? What could you be using? Remember, your soul chose this lifetime. So everything you've been through is there for a reason. It's here to teach you something. It's either karmic release, your soul expanding, it's preparing you for whatever's coming next. We're all going through a shift. The planet is going through a shift like never before. We're shifting from divine masculine to divine feminine. Many ways we're losing our identity. We're losing and shedding the layers, and something new is coming for us. And this is a beautiful time to really take a step back and really ask, what did I learn? What did my most painful experiences teach me? Nothing was wasted. Everything you went through has shaped your path. And sometimes we live in the past, you know, it's like, I wish we could do this or go back to this place. That version of you doesn't exist anymore. And, you know, if you're worried about the future, then how much control do you really have? So the magic is in this moment, being present, understanding your journey and where it's led you to. Maybe you're not meant to fit in. Maybe you don't belong, and that's okay. You know, so many of us have non-human lives, so maybe you're not meant to fit in. But remember, your story does have meaning, and your voice matters. And consider, what are you being preparing for? What are you here on this planet for? This episode is longer than normal, and I'd love feedback on it. Right? I mean, it's not a normal episode. There's a part of me that isn't comfortable sharing, talking about me. I guess I'm just used to having guests on and talking about a topic and sharing whatever wisdom I have. Stacey's normally, my co-host, is normally very vulnerable, and I don't hold back. If there's something I want to share, I feel like I'm an open book. But at the same time, I've never really talked openly about my journey. I've talked about my spiritual awakening and meeting Sidra and all that sort of stuff a few times, but I just felt the nudge to share my story at a deeper level. But again, I don't want this to be about my story. I really want it to be about sparking something inside you that really to ask yourself, what did I learn from my journey? What am I here to do? What this version of I am today was created because of everything I went through. Be proud of this version of you. Don't judge this version of you because you've been through so much. So take a moment to be proud. Do something for you today. Thank you for listening. If you got into this point, I'm so, so grateful for you. Please let me know if you have any feedback, and if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. Maybe you're ready for mentorship. Maybe you're ready to be guided to share your story. Maybe you're ready to shine your light differently. Book a free discovery call. Maybe we're meant to work together. I'm sending you all so, so much love and light. I love you very, very much. I love what I get to do, and I love that I get to do some of that on this podcast. So I'm so, so grateful. Sending you all so much love and light. Bye for now.